How could self love and self care not only help you enjoy your life more, but also help you grow your business? That's what we're going to talk about with my guests, Brooke Emery and Tammy Lawman, self love and self care experts. So stay tuned. Recognized by Forbes magazine as a connector, Brooke Emery is a creative business strategist with roots in advertising, publicity, and film. Tammy Lawman is a conscious business strategist, online marketer, and highly recommended rockstar joint venture and affiliate manager. Together, Brooke and Tammy are the co-creators of the Self-Love and Self-Care Symposium, where they teach you how to love yourself more fully, appreciate your unique gifts, and take better care of yourself so you can shine more brightly in the world. Welcome, ladies. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yay! Thank you for having us.
Be here. Thank you.
Yeah, talking about self-love and self-care, one of my favorite topics, especially when it comes to the divine feminine and nurturing that divine feminine nature within us. Before we talk about some of your specialties, I'd like to talk about how you would define the divine feminine. Tammy, how would you define that?
I think for me, it means being connected to that divine energy and being able to go about and do my business in the world and have relationships with people from that feminine aspect. And because when I was coming up out of college and I first started in the workforce, I was in really heavily male dominated industries. And that's primarily how I learned to do business. I was, came from a sales background and a banking background, and I sold metals. So I was walking into all these shops owned by men who did not like, a woman walking in there in a skirt and whatnot. So part of it was learning how to not, or how I could be genuine to myself, be authentic, and work from a way that felt good to me, and not have to take on all the male sales tactics and strategies, and still create beautiful relationships with people. And I think that's one reason why I excelled at creating relationships, because I went back to, I've never been like a talkative or a gabby kind of person, but I'm a really good listener. And for me, sales meant more about listening than talking, and really trying to understand my customers' pain points, why they started their businesses, what, really motivated them, and then trying to find solutions that not only benefited my company, but also my client. And I think I take that into my business today, where I'm constantly looking for solutions that work for all sides, not just for one side, because it has to be something that I would put my stamp of approval on, something that helps me sleep easy at night. And if I'm helping two sides win instead of just one, then it just makes me feel better overall and feel like I'm contributing and doing more good in the world.
Yeah, we went through such a period of time where business was primarily masculine in its nature, which is what you're speaking to. So the fact that you were focusing on relationships, that you were listening, that you were looking at what kind of cooperative elements can you bring into the space that allows everyone to excel, were really feminine qualities. The divine feminine was just flowing through you naturally into the workplace. So it's lovely to hear that beautiful way in which divine feminine has flowed through your life in such a very practical and meaningful way.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, Brooke, when I say divine feminine, what does that bring up for you?
For me, it has always been about following my intuition and listening to those little nudges that I've gotten throughout my life, and not questioning them as a game to play, and more of a fun, playful way versus force and pressure and heaviness. And not to say that masculinity is bad or wrong, but just more from this place of following intuition, collaboration versus competition, just being connected to flow and what feels good, and listening to that and allowing myself to follow those divine inspirations has always been my definition of being more feminine, just being in a place of what she said, listening, receptivity versus, being the problem solver, like allowing versus forcing. So that's what it means to me.
That's a beautiful distinction, that allowing, that allows flow and that allows intuition to emerge. So you're coming from a different place of creation, really.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I need that masculine side to myself to get things done. So it doesn't mean I've abandoned my masculine side. It's just, I prefer to be in that wizard energy more than that warrior. But sometimes I need that warrior to come out and, but it's, as Harvecker calls it, an enlightened warrior versus an angry warrior.
Yeah, that's a great distinction.
Yeah,
we need both energies for sure.
Mhm.
And Tammy, you were really speaking to that. I mean, business had lost a lot of it. And when I was more involved in the business world, what I found was you kind of had to look for it. It was there, but often kind of masked by this very masculine bravado. This is how we do things, a little forceful, a little pushy. But really, I thought some of the most conscious businesses and very successful businesses were ones in which they incorporated some of what you're talking about, that intuition, that sense of being able to be a little more in the flow. They were more in touch with their clients than some of the top-down management systems that I was in. So I think we have been catching on for a while, that the feminine elements, the consciousness, you might say, are just as important to a thriving life and lifestyle and business as were the masculine elements that we also need to get things done. So how awesome these discoveries that we've been making over about the last 50 or 60 years together.
Yes.
What would you say is the relationship between self-love and self-care and our divine feminine natures as women? Brooke, do you have some thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, for those who are just listening, that self-love and self-care sometimes will be associated with just taking bubble baths or getting a massage or things like that. But it's really about, taking care of yourself in your well-being, in your mind, body, and spirit. And I think that a lot of times as women, we can tend to put other people first or people please or want to be liked. And I think that putting self-love and self-care into our lives has us be more in this feminine, gracious, compassionate place than if we're exhausted, depleted, giving our power away, not putting boundaries, saying yes when we want to say no. I think those are the things that are counterintuitive to the feminine nature, as opposed to when we take care of ourselves, say no, or not people please, speak our truth, be in our power, even if it means being judged or not liked in certain cases. But the freedom and the benefits of being in your divine feminine power far outweigh the other parts. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's what I was guided to say.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're right on target. I think we as women do tend to give our power away. That's why codependency has been such an issue for so many of us. And that realization that our self-care is part of claiming our power, right?
Yeah.
And that we're coming from this well of generosity you spoke to is, our graciousness. That was the word that really stuck for me, that graciousness. That's a very different place. Flow, as you mentioned before, it stimulates flow. Yeah. Tammy, what are your thoughts about that self-care and self-love in relationship to the divine?
I was thinking about, I think a lot of times we put on masks and we put on a persona of how we think someone needs us to be, or like in a position, or we think maybe there are some aspects of ourselves we shouldn't highlight or share as much with people. And maybe it's a shadow aspect that you're ashamed of, or maybe it's someone that's told you your laugh is too loud, or you wear too provocative clothes, or whatever, and it kind of you take a hit with your confidence and your esteem. But I think when you really sit down and take a good look at yourself and say, this is who I am, this is how I want to be, and I want people to know and like and want to work with me because they're working with the real me, then I think the rest of that just falls away. And then you spend all the other time focusing on what you want to create and the people that you're working with, instead of the persona that you're trying to share. So you can just be who you are, and then people are going to come and resonate with you, or they're not. And the people who are the people that you need to continue focusing on and working with. And again, it's letting go of the rest of it. I used to love to listen to Zig Ziglar in the car when I was on sales calls. And, he would always talk about a yes is just or a no is just not a yes right now. And I often think of that. And so I don't have any trouble going and talking to new people, or going out and asking someone about a relationship, or to get on a phone call, because I don't take any of that personally. But I know that I'm just being who I am. And even though I feel like I'm a very nice, meek person, some people have told me that I'm very, I don't know, I've been described as being very tenacious, aggressive even, which surprises me sometimes. But I think that's just my personality when I'm really passionate about something. And I don't let that deter me from being who I am now. I don't let it keep me from being passionate about it, or really trying to go after something I really want.
I'm really hearing, Tammy, that you've been developing a beautiful balance between your masculine energy, that assertiveness in you, but also the receptivity in you, and the ability to be authentic, which I think has very much come right in tandem with our understanding of feminine consciousness. That we have been more authentic because it's more natural to us. There's less posturing, less positioning, less masking. And the men that I know that have been in any way connected to sacred feminine or divine feminine energy, it's one of the aspects of it they love, is that sense of being more true to who we are, finding that balance.
Yeah, I think it is a balancing act. It doesn't have to be precarious, but you can slide a little bit to one way and say, okay, that didn't feel so great, so let me just move a little bit back this way. And maybe one person that you're dealing with is you can go down the spectrum that far with that person and have this beautiful relationship with them. So I think it's adjusting to people too, and holding space for them to be who they are as well. And you're balancing your energy against theirs so that you can both get what you want.
Yeah, great observation. Brooke, you have something.
Yeah, I was even thinking about over the years how even marketing has changed, where it's, at least the marketing that we like to do, we're not about like, oh, this is, scarcity marketing, or, hit somebody over the head, give them the headache, and then you have the bottle of aspirin waiting. It's more like an inspiring type of marketing, a truthful, if you see, like nowadays, it's more about storytelling and being vulnerable. And I think that is a sign of being more feminine versus like, the way the advertising used to be, like, oh, if you don't get this, you're, it still exists.
Yeah.
But I would say that the people that are winning in business right now are those who are taking more of a feminine, authentic, vulnerable approach to how they're selling themselves in a way that is really putting the person first. And I mean, it sounds surprising, but they actually really care versus transactional. And I think caring is a feminine, nurturing quality that I think is going to be it is going to be the winner in the long run. I mean, maybe some people get the immediate gratification of the transaction, but ultimately you're seeing more and more people incorporate impact in their business, not just to say, oh, 10% or to look good. They really are weaving and making it a priority to put, the consciousness of the planet and putting that into their businesses, as well as into their, relationships. So that's exciting to me to see that the divine feminine is making its way into business. And
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is exciting. And there have been studies done on this showing that millennials, particularly, thank you, as the generations are coming through, are looking for greater authenticity. And I would wholeheartedly agree that comes from compassionate caring about relationships, which is part of a natural divine feminine consciousness. Tammy, something else was coming to you.
Yeah, I was going to say this is one big thing that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years is going from a place of like feeling like you're in competition with everyone to being more in a space of let's provide this, sacred space where we can come and collaborate together. Let's collaborate. Let's not compete with each other because you've got something beautiful to offer that really complements what I can offer. And let's work together to, make this world, make whatever we're working on, whatever project we're working on a little better than it was before we got here.
Indeed.
We really appreciate that about you, Misa, because it would be easy for us to think maybe, oh, well, I'm doing divine feminine. They're talking about self-love, or we market to it. And the fact that we can come together and play in the sandbox together and knowing we're together rising the greater good, that just feels amazing. And we love that about you. And that's who you are. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And I feel the same way about both of you. Absolutely. And the telesummit that you do, that we all do together, I really believe those are coming out of feminine consciousness as well, really breaking down the competitive model. And by the way, I love competition, but I do, especially when it's with myself. How can our business do better than we did last year, right? When my husband and I are planning, it's like, where's the juice? Where's the excitement? Not over anyone else and not at anyone else's expense, but as you so beautifully said, for the betterment, right? Betterment of all of us. You see this self-love and self-care really helping us create better experiences in our businesses, in our relationships, and get what we want personally and professionally. Tammy, do you have a thought about that?
Yeah, I think when you make yourself a number one priority and you're like, okay, my house is in order, my body physically is in order, I'm in a good mental state, spiritually I'm good, my vibe is high. I mean, whatever it is for you. I have a lot of stuff on my bookshelves in the back, but my house is spotless and I can't focus if my house is not clean. So I don't just mean my body, but my physical house is in order. And I just am able to focus better on the projects and the tasks at hand. And I'm able to allow space in my brain when all those little things are done, or when I know that I'm healthy and feeling good, and if you've got a health issue coming up, to make sure you get that taken care of, because your health is very important to your overall well-being. But I think when you're firing on all cylinders on all those pillars, that you're able to be in a more present mind and to be able to come up with more solutions, to be able to allow in more divine imaging or imagination or ideas to come through. So I think that that's where the self-love and self-care comes in. Plus, I mean, when you love yourself and you're really honed into your intuition and you are trusting those ideas that are coming forth, and you can speak them and verbalize them and imagine them and dream them into being. I mean, everything gets first created in your mind, and then you take steps to make it something reality. So you create it twice. All those things contribute. So I think it all starts with self-love and self-care.
Yeah, beautiful. Brooke, what
I
do
think
you?
for me, putting self-love and self-care, when I really put the time in, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time, but when I start my day with that being the first thing on my mind, it's usually spirit, God, but it's really about what Tammy said, like really cleaning the inner house and setting myself up for a beautiful day and really co-creating with my day. Everything just flows more effectively, efficiently, with more fun and ease. And there are going to be days when I even do have that practice and things might still go sideways. However, I have the consciousness to love myself enough to reclaim my power, like give it a stage for a minute or two or an hour or two, but then I have the ability to love myself enough to reclaim my power back from the situations that happen throughout the day, use it as an opportunity for growth. Thank you, Ryder, that's Ryder, everybody. So I'll take that as a time to mute and let Tammy take over from here.
Yeah, so I'll just top off on Brooke. What Brooke was saying is, being able to reclaim yourself, come back to, being present, being grounded, and then being able to move on with your day with a little more ease. It's about allowing flow, allowing it to come into you without having to work so hard for it to come in, without forcing an idea, or like if you've got a problem, without forcing a solution. And then also being patient when things have not lined up in the universe yet, because there is a gap between sometimes when we realize there's something we want and the time we get it. And sometimes it's a long gap, and you've got to be okay with being in that gap and being present with how things are in that moment while you're waiting for that dream to come in.
I am so glad you spoke to that, because if there's one thing I see in my own life and with my clients is this sense of impatience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I set the intention, I'm doing the work. Where that is it?
Oh, that's like Brooke and I have this conversation like on a week. So I'm like, and then I'm like, okay, take a breath, because it's not the right time. It's not ready to come out yet. And so then you go back to focusing on the things that that are working right now, and you keep doing those things. And then it's usually a solution or an opportunity or a conversation with someone that we haven't even met yet that comes forward. And that's the divine part of it.
That's the fun, and that's the flow, the intuitive piece
The
of it.
trust. Yeah. I think that I think especially with the advancements in technology, right? We can text someone and get a text right. I mean, I remember I used to have to write letters in the mail when I lived in Spain. We didn't have internet. We had to write a letter and wait 10 days to get that letter back, to hear from people. I had to go to the store and buy a phone card to call my parents, and maybe they would be home, and we've become this microwave culture, and guilty, but we're so used to the Instapot, right, of manifestation. And there is something about that patience that you mentioned, Tammy, that is so potent and powerful. And that's why it's so great to be in community like this, so that we can remind each other. I mean, I have this happen with my kids all the time, where I tell them things and I forgot. And then they'll be like, well, you said, I'm like, ooh, I'm so glad I told you that, because I forgot, and that's the beauty and I guess the blessing and the curse of being human. We have, I have it, I don't have it. And so we all have each other in this community, in this collective consciousness to remind each other the beauty of that patience and to get back into that mode of self-love and self-care, or what do I need right now, or what could I do right now that would be the most nourishing thing for myself. And it doesn't have to be emotional eating. Don't worry, I'm not going to suggest that. But sometimes a black and white cookie helps, but
or as our friend Marion talks about, her chicken wings and cupcakes. Love her.
It's really true when there are gaps in the activities, right? That is a perfect moment to be with yourself. I used to tell myself when I was starting my business for the first time 30 some years ago as an entrepreneur, and there were no clients yet, I would sit down and I would meditate, and I would get my accounting system set up, and I would learn Word or whatever I was doing and tell myself, yes, but I'm going to be so busy. I need to enjoy every minute I have right now. And I have done that over the years. Okay, it's time for a cup of tea. It's time to go take a walk with my sweetie. It's whatever it is, because it will get busy, and it does. And it allows you to move in a natural flow with the energy rather than being in worry, right? And that lack of trust, which actually constrains the energy and doesn't allow it to flow, which is what we were talking about early on, that sense of flow that comes in that beautiful divine feminine energy and trust. So thank you for that reminder. That's exactly right. So
there's always going to be the ebb and flow. So you might as well, when the tide's out, take that time, because you never know when the next it's going to come back in, and you don't know when it's going to go back out again. So it's kind of a cue to, it's not flowing right now, so take a break.
It's really true. And
when you work with it as opposed to work against it, it feels better.
It feels better, and it works for you because you've allowed it to be space. We think everything has to be filled up, which is what you were speaking to, Brooke, and that doesn't allow any room for receptivity. So when we're conscious with the receptive space and we allow that to be a self-caring moment, we're actually stimulating flow in our business. At least that's been my experience. Yeah. And it's really, really awesome. I think in large part because it does. We settle into trust.
Yeah. And our bodies tell us too, right? So Tammy and I had a call last week that we had mentioned earlier. And this person was beautiful soul and very in the masculine mode, like, let's hit it. Let's, hustle. Let's do it. Like, we're going to do X amount of X and let's go. And we didn't have a chance to talk after her. And we were like this, and when we finally got to debrief, I said, he's in masculine, and that's not what we signed up for.
Oh,
we're going to do this our way, in a way that feels light and good and in flow and joy, not because we should, or that's the system that's working for him and he's crushing it. Like, we don't want to crush anything. So we got to witness us. There are times, like I said, we got to bring in the warrior and the masculine to get things done, but it wasn't feeling good in our body. It felt heavy and like a should, which was a clear sign we shouldn't. So
great insight. And I think it's so important when we're going into business as entrepreneurs, and so many of us are, and so many women are coming in as entrepreneurs, to remember that that modality of creation, that crushing it kind of stance, can absolutely work for creating a prosperous and even fun life. But if it's not in harmony with who you are, it will do exactly the opposite. It will create more stress, tension, and doubt. And now you're not opening to flow, that the feminine ways of opening to, being in flow, being intuitive, taking care of ourselves, and being in business are equally prosperous. We just haven't heard that language as much or seen as much evidence perhaps in our lives. But in my personal experience, it works better. I can double my income. I can set a goal and actually achieve that when I'm in a feminine consciousness, but it doesn't happen if I overdo my masculine energy. So finding that right flow is absolutely fundamental. And I love that you're so true to what works for you in that feminine consciousness.
Thank
So
you.
leave us with a one insight that you would provide, one thing, like if you're going to do anything in your business and personal life, be aware of one thing that would allow you to really embody that spirit of self-love and self-care for your well-being and your business well-being. That was a long question. I hope you track that. What one piece of advice would you offer? Brooke, what would you offer, dear?
So it's really interesting because before Tammy and I work together, my husband and I have a joint mission statement, which is do good and have fun. And then when Tammy and I met up, she's like, that's our mission statement too. And so I would say do good and have fun. I think that for me, it has to be fun. And there are times you're like, oh, how can you make QuickBooks fun? Like, well, some people can, but it's like, okay, well, sometimes I make deals with myself being like, okay, well, what would make this more fun? Okay, what if I start putting that great playlist on while I do the QuickBooks? Or maybe if I work out first and then I have the serotonin going, then I'll go back and do, please QuickBooks, I love you. But, it's just an example. And so I think for me, injecting fun into everything and joy is a key. And for the things that are, let's say, more mundane and boring and parts of life, okay, well, how can I make it? And asking the question, how can I make it more fun? And then allowing that answer to show up without attachment and see what shows up.
I love it. All right. Thank you, Brooke. Tammy, what's your quick tip for our listeners?
I think I want to say look for connections and people that lift you up, and let go of those relationships, those partnerships, those projects or clients that are depleting your energy, that you feel like you just can't give more to, because other opportunities will flow through. There is so much abundance. There's so much more that's going to come through. Never be afraid to let it go. Even if it's your last client, let it go. Make space for something more beautiful to come in for you.
Very true. Awesome advice. Awesome insights, ladies. Thank you so very much. And I want to encourage everyone to get to know Tammy and Brooke and their beautiful work. You can register for their Self-Love, Self-Care Symposium at the link below. And as always, subscribe to my channel and join us in this community. And to receive my free meditation gift, The Holding, check out another link below. And thanks for all you are doing to awaken feminine consciousness. And I'll see you at my next interview.